Hello, welcome to a new episode of Talk Turkey.
Hi, Nevşin. It's the final countdown for elections in Turkey.
Yes, we have less than 2 months left, actually.
Yes.
So, and it's a very, very crucial elections for everyone. At least everybody perceives this as like a benchmark election, because the opposition says we're going to transform the system back to a parliamentary system. So, I mean, it's going to be either the parliamentary system or the existing system, presidential system. So it's going to be a benchmark election. And this time, for the opposition side, it looks like there's hope.
Yes. Well, surprisingly, we are talking about the elections, but also it's like quite complex, because this time we are really talking about many different electoral alliances, candidates. The system is a bit unique as well. So maybe we can start with a very brief background on what the Turkish elections look like and what are we exactly electing in Turkey. And then we can go through different electoral alliances as well. There are quite a few this time. As you said, it's going to be on May 14th, and it has potential to be the most consequential, actually, since 1950 elections, I believe, which ended the single-party rule. I think we are coming to a point similar to this. And declining support to the AKP combined with the strong alliances, there seems to be a chance to end to the AKP era. And we are going to elect 600 parliamentarians and one president, potentially also several vice presidents, but we will come to that. And total about 62 million people will be able to vote in these elections. And for the presidential elections, if no candidate secures more than 50% in the first round, we will also have a second round, which will take place on 28th of May. In terms of number of voters, there are also around 6 million first-time voters. This is really important because these young people were born actually after Erdogan came to power in 2002, and their vote can have a major impact on elections. So as a result of the constitutional referendum in 2017, Turkey is ruled by a presidential system, as some say, a La Turca presidential system, because it is also rather unique with many different peculiar rules. And under this system, the president is actually very powerful, and presidential decrees can really play a significant role. The parliament is still strong too, but if it's also controlled by the president's party, then checks and balances don't really work very well. That's also why one of the main promises of the opposition is reinstating the parliamentary system. Ironically, the presidential system gave more power to Erdogan, but it has also complicated things for him. He needs more than 50% now. Just to put it in a context, in 2002 elections, he became prime minister of Turkey with only 34%. That's also why he needs electoral alliances now. Electoral alliances were introduced as a way of increasing his power, but the opposition parties, they learned also the game rather quickly. And by forming different electoral alliances now, they are seriously challenging Erdogan, actually. So electoral alliances have also increased the power of small parties in Turkey, because in the current system, 1 or 2% matters a lot. Moreover, the small parties have a chance to bypass the electoral threshold in Turkey, which is 7% at the moment. It used to be 10, and it was reduced to 7 last year. Thanks to electoral alliances, it doesn't really matter, though, for small parties. According to the Supreme Election Board, 36 parties are qualified to run for the upcoming elections. There are certain requirements, otherwise the total number of parties are around 120 in Turkey. So following this brief background, we can maybe start to present all main alliances and their candidates. Maybe you can start with AKP's People's Alliance, probably also your favorite.
Yes. Well, I mean, apparently so far, people's favorites in Turkey. So here are the two guys who started this People's Alliance. This is President Erdogan shaking hands with the leader of the Nationalist Movement Party, Devlet Bahçeli. They gathered together and they formed the party. Legally, these two started. There's also one other smaller party, a Büyük Birlik Partisi, Mustafa Destici. It's a smaller party, but they're within the alliance. However, this is an interesting alliance. Like, for example, Devlet Bahçeli is not a minister or anything, or we don't have ministers from MHP, but rather there's one minister that Devlet Bahçeli likes, and that is the Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu. He is known to be in close contact with Devlet Bahçeli. But other than that, they have been racing in the elections with their own lists and everything. So we did not see MHP MPs that are competing from AK Party lists. So this was how this alliance was shaped. And there's also one other fringe party, Vatan Partisi, Doğu Perinçek, pro-Russia, pro-China party, but they're not really, legally within the coalition, but they're supporting the coalition from outside. So that is how it looks. So they are in power right now, but so far, we're going to come to the polls a little later, obviously. It looks like even Mr. Erdogan uniting forces with Mr. Bahçeli does not make them win the upcoming elections. So they're looking for new members. These two new members are very, very controversial. One is Hüdapar. So this is the chair of Hüdapar. This party basically, also there is Turkish Hizbullah, but Turkish Hizbullah is listed as a terrorist organization by the Turkish state. Back in the 90s, they had these little cell houses in the eastern Turkey. They were operating in the Kurdish areas. They were kidnapping Kurdish intellectuals, Kurdish theologians, and they were basically assassinating these people. So they were a clear-cut terrorist organization. But throughout the years, they said, okay, we're not terrorists anymore, and we're forming a legal party, and this is their party, Hüdapar, but they're a very fringe group, obviously, but they have fundamentalist views. And
so can we call them like fundamentalist Islamist Kurdish party?
Yes. I'll come to that in a little bit. But there's one other party, Yeniden Refah Partisi. So while this is Fatih Erbakan, the head of this party is Fatih Erbakan. People who are familiar with Turkish politics would know his father, Necmettin Erbakan. He's from Milli Görüş, one of the founders of Milli Görüş. That's his son, basically, because his party, his father's party, Saadet Partisi, are now in alliance with CHP. So he has his own party now, Yeniden Refah Partisi. So they also are having talks with AK Party to join this alliance. But these two, this is really dangerous for Turkish politics. But because both Hüdapar and Yeniden Refah Partisi, they are representing very, very fringe groups in Turkey. And them being, talked to, them being in the political bargaining, basically this makes these fringe groups, this carry them to the Turkish people's agenda and make them, in a sense, mainstream. They really have, fundamentalist demands. For example, both Yeniden Refah Partisi, Hüdapar is also supportive of that. They want this famous Turkish law, 6,284, numbered law. This law basically is about the protection of women against violence. They want this law to be repealed because they say this law should be abolished because of this law, women are being more independent, more free, and this and that, and we're losing a Turkish family, basically, traditional Turkish family. This law is really hurting Turkish society, so it should be changed, it should be abolished. And they claim, when they've spoken to AK Party, when they had these talks with AK Party, they claimed AK Party said yes to their demand. They said AK Party is really, we're in agreement with AK Party. This law is going to change. They're in agreement with us. Some women politicians, strong women politicians in AK Party, they said, no, we're not really in agreement with Yeniden Refah Partisi about this. But this reminds me of the time when Turkey left the Istanbul Convention. Same AK Party women politicians, they were also against leaving that convention, but Then the pressure from the similar fringe groups actually won, and Turkey left Istanbul Convention with only one signature of the president. So I think it's becoming really, really dangerous in that sense because of this system. Erdogan needs 50 plus 1 votes. And so he is now turning to these smaller parties, very fundamentalist, very, very marginal, to get just 1%, 2%, 1% more, 2% more. They're turning to these parties, making them mainstream. I find that rather dangerous for Turkish politics.
And it's also like, for example, especially the New Welfare Party, they also have this agenda of promoting conspiracy theories about vaccines, about Israel, about West and all. And especially Hüdapar, they may also scare some other like moderate voters.
This guy, Fatih Erbakan, during the pandemic, he was sharing, stuff on Twitter like allegedly people who got vaccinated gave birth to kids with tails, sort of stuff. He's that sort of guy. So big time, conspiracy theorist and everything. And now he's like a serious political actor all of a sudden, talking to Binali Yıldırım. He's one of the big guns of AK Party you see in this picture. The last prime minister of Turkey is like sitting at the same table with this guy and negotiating. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also maybe we should note that the total votes of the electoral alliance doesn't mean also the total vote of the president, because on one hand, Turks will be voting for electoral alliance for the parliamentary elections and then for the president. Like in 2018 elections, for example, the alliance got 53.7%, but Erdogan got 52.6%. Not a major difference, but even 1% can change a lot. And this can be also important because especially, I guess, among MHP voters, there is a tendency of voting for the alliance, but not necessarily voting for President Erdogan. Yes. So if you're done with this alliance, we can go to the main opposition alliance, maybe.
Yes, please.
Which is called the Nation Alliance. We talked quite a lot about them, actually, in the previous episodes. It's the main opposition alliance. It's also known as the Table of Six because there are 6 opposition parties in the alliance. They came together. The biggest one is the main opposition party, CHP, Republican People's Party, then Central Right Good Party. Then we have 2 AKP breakaway parties, DEVA, more or less liberal, central right, and Future Party, a sort of post-Islamist. Then there are also 2 small parties, one very small Islamist party, Felsti, and then a very, very small symbolic Democrat Party. And unlike the other alliances, actually, the Nation Alliance is also a potential post-election coalition. They've been working for a long time to determine their common positions, strategies, as well as a roadmap to bring back the parliamentary system in Turkey. They are preparing to govern Turkey following the elections. Their presidential candidate is Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the chairperson of the Republican People's Party. They have a unique strategy with candidates for vice presidents too. In this alla Turca presidential system, the president actually can appoint vice presidents, as many as he or she likes. However, we don't really have a system similar to the US. We usually don't know them in advance, and they don't really run together. But the Nation Alliance did something rather unique and creative, and declared also 7 vice president candidates. As CHP's chairperson is the presidential candidate, the other chairpersons of 5 political parties, as well as 2 mayors, 2 very popular mayors also in the West, Mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, and Mayor of Ankara, Mansur Yavaş, are going to be the vice presidents in case of Kılıçdaroğlu's election victory. This is also quite important, especially the involvement of mayors. Actually, it's happened following a major crisis within the alliance, and it was a sort of solution to find a common ground. And these mayors are already campaigning together with Kılıçdaroğlu, and this is an important element of the strategy. Maybe very briefly also, I can say a few words about Kılıçdaroğlu because he's also not very well known actually in the West. probably the mayors were even more popular, for example, in Brussels, and people knew about them, knew about their names, but the Kılıçdaroğlu is rather unknown here. So he's 74 years old. He's known as like a quiet, honest, modest person. The image he has been creating is more like one of us. And his lifestyle is also parallel to this image. He sort of has a modest middle-class life, including his apartment. He's also making some videos from his apartment to show that he's just living like many middle-class families actually in Turkey. He's Alevi. Alevis are under Shia Islam, but our viewers shouldn't confuse them with the Shias in Iran or Syria. This is the kind of a Turkish Sufi version of Islam. They are usually very open-minded and progressive. As Turkey is a Sunni majority country, some believe that this can be a disadvantage in elections. However, I believe that this is a major opportunity as well, especially for reconciliation in Turkey, because Turkey is very polarized. We've been talking about this all the time. And it's been one of the key policies of the AKP to consolidate their voters. A president from a different background is an opportunity so that many disadvantaged groups in Turkey, they can start to believe that they can also succeed. They can also be part of the system and they can rule the country as well. So Kılıçdaroğlu became a member of the parliament in 2002, actually, when AKP came to power. In 2009, he ran for municipal elections in Istanbul, and he lost against the AKP candidate. And in 2010, he became the leader of the CHP following a sex tape scandal of the previous chairperson. He didn't have an election victory against AKP, and this is one of the criticized points actually about him, maybe except the municipal elections in 2019, but his strategy of uniting the opposition in the last few years has been working very well. Thanks to this strategy and his partnership with Good Party and his chairwoman Akşener, now we can talk about a potential victory against the AKP. So he's really one of the masterminds, at least, of this strategy. He also has several nicknames. The most popular one is by Kemal, Mr. Kemal. Erdogan was calling him in this way, actually, so that he was sort of looking down and seeing him like someone who couldn't do much, who couldn't succeed much. But Kılıçdaroğlu somehow turned it around and made it as a nickname. And there are also other nicknames as like Turkish Gandhi, Quiet Force, Grandpa Democracy. And he's trying to really work on this image well and to reach out to especially young people, even if he's quite old. He's really doing his best in the last few years to reach out to young people. And one of his mottos is popular nowadays: "My name is Kemal, I'm coming." So we will see if he's going to be the next president of Turkey.
Well, yes, I mean, there are a lot of ifs, of course. I mean, if the opposition manages to do this, if the opposition manages to do that, one thing they have to manage to do is like get the support of HDP, the main Kurdish party in the system. They're in another alliance. So one of the members of this opposition alliance, E party, they're a nationalist party, actually, as you defined, and they don't want to be anywhere near HDP, basically. They're in the same side. They're both against Erdogan, but they're kind of against each other also. So they cannot be like in the same alliance. But HDP formed another alliance, basically, this one, Labor and Freedom Alliance. So there is HDP and other communist parties. So this is the what they sometimes people call the left alliance. So they are highly likely they're going to support Kılıçdaroğlu's candidacy. They're not going to have their own presidential candidate. Instead, they're going to vote for Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, but in the parliamentary elections, they're going to have their own list or whatnot or whatever. But within this alliance, there are also problems. So the main party, of course, in this alliance is HDP. The only party that can pass the national threshold, which is 7%, is HDP. Other parties cannot really pass. For example, Turkish Labour Party. It's like one of these recent parties. They used to be Turkish Communist Party. Now they're divided into two, and this one is Turkish Labour Party, they're kind of favorite. They're like favorable among young people, obviously, but they cannot get, I mean, let's be realistic, more than 1%, 2%. So that's the expectancy. So they cannot, on their own, they cannot pass the threshold. So they need to be in their alliance with HDP. But they had some problems within the alliance because Turkish Labour Party, they say they're strong in Istanbul. So they want to have their own MPs in Istanbul, because HDP says, let's have a strategy. Let's have one list, for example, to be more effective, to get more MPs within the parliament, only one list. And then Turkish Labour Party says, well, then we want 20 MPs. And HDP does not see this realistic. And Turkish Labour Party members, well, they used to be, I mean, they have some MPs. Ahmet Şık, for example, Ahmet Şık in the previous elections, he ran under HDP. And he was elected by the votes of HDP voters, but then he switched parties. Then he switched to Turkish Labour Party. One other MP, Sera Kadıgil, he's one of the, Sera Kadıgil is resembled to American AOC in a sense, her style and everything. He's, like one of the loud and fighting type, in Turkish politics. So Sera Kadıgil was used to be CHP. She was elected with CHP voters' votes, but now she switched to Turkish Labour Party and everything. So if they run on their own, basically they cannot get elected. They need HDP in this system, but they want 20 MPs, and HDP does not see that realistic and everything. So they're having their own discussions. And one of the things, there's a case against HDP that is going on, that is on the Supreme Court. Basically, the claim is HDP is being supported and supporting the terrorist group PKK. So the demand is the closure of HDP. It is going on, this court case. HDP is going to defend themselves, written and orally, I think, on April. So there is a possibility just before the elections, Supreme Court could decide to close HDP. There is that. So HDP has their own strategy now. What they're going to do is they formed another party formerly, which is called Left and the Greens Party, something like that. And this is actually HDP substitute party. So they are not going to risk running under HDP. They're going to run under Left and the Greens Party, basically. Even if HDP is closed, it will not make any difference. But since HDP voters are really, really loyal, and they're very political voter base, they always follow. They're gonna know that this Left and the Greens Party is actually HDP, and then they're going to be voting for that. And in the forthcoming days, it's expected that HDP is going to meet with Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, and they're going to officially announce that they will be supporting Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu in the upcoming presidential elections.
Yes, actually, when we see these alliances, we also see that when you operate under difficult circumstances, you can really be very creative. And that's what Turkish opposition is doing at the moment. And it's also a sort of democracy test as well, because in Turkey, we don't really have this culture of parties coming together, especially parties from very different backgrounds and ideologies. So this is sort of happening first time. And it's of course going with some ups and downs, but I think it's a very healthy exercise as well for the future of democracy in Turkey. Maybe we can continue with the next key player in the next elections. It's also a very curious case as well. I know he's also a very good friend. He called you this week. So Muharrem İnce is the next key player. He was actually a candidate of CHP in 2018 elections. He left the party and established his Homeland Party, which is a sort of nationalist left with some touch of populism. In 2018, he got 30.6%, and he couldn't really manage the election night very well. That's why many people in Turkey are still angry at him. He accuses his old party, CHP accuses him, but finally, here we are, and he's running against actually Kılıçdaroğlu as well, in a way, because they are sort of targeting the same voters. He's extremely visible on social media, and is a mystery because he doesn't seem to have a huge support. He seems to attract, of course, some young voters, but his visibility is really beyond that. There are also some conspiracy theories about his popularity on social media. Some also believe that AKP is indirectly supporting his social media presence because it's also sort of working against Kılıçdaroğlu as well. And if we can get some votes from Kılıçdaroğlu, then we can talk about also a second round. He even tweeted a few days ago publicly asking Elon Musk to check if there are bots supporting him and put them down if it is the case. He's also very sensitive nowadays. He has been arguing with many journalists, including you. He's been complaining about all these people being against himself. So we are going to see how it is going to evolve. But basically, why is his potential few percent, maybe not even, but why is this important? Because if Kılıçdaroğlu is under 50% in the first round because of this, we will have a second round. And this is an additional layer of risk for the opposition. Both they will need to stay united. But of course, if there is a second round, then we may also have much more aggressive strategy coming from the AKP as well. He also said that he may withdraw prior to elections if he sees that he's not going to be winning. So probably he's going to use this as a sort of negotiation power with the Nation Alliance. We are going to see this, but he believes that he gets like 28-30% votes now, and then he believes that he will be the one going to the second round. But to be honest, this doesn't seem to be very likely.
Yeah, I mean, rather than a conspiracy theory, actually, this was the conversation between me and Mr. Ince also. So I said on Fox TV, basically, which I'm a commentator on Friday nights. So I said, basically, I mean, what we're seeing is we have some Twitter personalities, also bots, but Twitter personalities, which are known to be pro-government, and they have been supporting Muharrem İnce, or like openly. And we're seeing these bots and these bots being directed by the panels and everything. They're boosting Muharrem İnce videos. I mean, we've been seeing that. And I explained this on TV. Then Mr. İnce called me and he was like, you don't have any data. You're saying this, but you don't have any data. I said, I have data, actually. As a matter of fact, we have data. I mean, we have been following such Twitter personalities, basically, and also these bot movements, and you can openly see they're supporting Muharrem İnce. Why are pro-government Twitter personalities and pro-government Twitter, basically, tweet factories, in a sense, or troll factories, why are they supporting Muharrem İnce? Because he's very crucial. He's going to carry the election to the second round, basically, as you explained. And if the election goes to the second round, then who has the parliament is going to be much more important. Even if AK Party cannot have the sole majority in the parliament, they're highly likely they're going to have a lot of MPs, probably a little more MPs than CHP, and then Erdogan is going to use that to basically boost himself in the second round. Then he's going to turn to his voters, he's going to turn to Turkish voters, and he's going to say, well, you see, we have the parliament, we're the majority in the parliament, so basically for sustainable future, sustainable politics, support me. Otherwise, it's going to be a crisis. If the parliament is something else and the president is something else in this system, then nothing is going to run, nothing is going to work. So support me. So that's the plan. That's the game plan of the government. Actually, you can see this clearly. Another crucial candidate is going to be Sinan Oğan. This is the taller gentleman with the red tie. So, we talked about this Victory Party before. Victory Party is this racist anti-immigration party, and they are in an alliance with some smaller parties. I don't know really who they are. They're not important. Nobody knew of them.
But too many of those small parties.
Too many of small parties. But this is basically hardcore nationalist racist parties, and they are going to have a candidate, which is going to be Sinan Oğan. He started running also officially, but obviously, I mean, for İnce and Sinan Oğan, for them, because they don't have parliamentary groups within the parliament, they are going to need to gather 100,000 signatures to be able to run for president. But I believe they will be able to find these signatures because the government wants them to run. First of all, probably highly likely they're going to gather these signatures. Sinan Oğan also, he can get votes from E party base. the good party base, voter base. So I think Sinan Oğan and Muharrem İnce are very, very crucial to carry these elections to the second round.
Yes, I mean, on the one hand, all the strategies are about presidential elections. And then, as you said, the parliament is also very important. That's why within the alliances, there are also even more complicated balance of power games and where to cooperate, where not to cooperate. Some alliances will have some joint lists for certain cities, and then they won't have for other cities. So it's really a very complex game, and they are all doing their best actually to maintain sort of majority in the parliament as well. So it's really going to be very interesting.
Shall we talk about polls a little bit? You made your own poll. Actually, not your own poll, but like
Not my own poll.
What did you do? Explain.
Well, because during last few days, basically, there were 4 different polling companies came up with different results for March 2023. I just combined them to show them together, and this is also like showing a sort of a trend. Of course, some of these companies are more reliable. Some we don't really know much about them, but it's good to probably show them together because then we can see the trend, and trend seems to be about a 45 to 55% the balance, at least at the moment, between Kılıçdaroğlu and Erdoğan, where the Kılıçdaroğlu is leading. Of course, the issue is like this is more about like when they are running head-to-head rather than with the other candidates. So we don't know what would be the influence of Muharrem İnce running or Sinan Oğan, and how they can really change this balances. That's why we should be cautious about these results as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the opposition, it looks very, very optimistic, but it's going to depend on the next 2 months that Turkey is going to get through, basically. The campaigns are going to be really important. And of course, I mean, what to come. I was checking Reuters today. And on Reuters, for example, one of the AK Party politicians, they leaked this information. They say, well, Mr. Erdoğan, now he understood the importance of free market economy, so he's going to make a U-turn after the elections. He's going to invite Mehmet Şimşek, one of his former ministers, economy ministers. During his time, it was a more
It has become like an urban legend, like inviting.
Urban legend. Exactly. So Erdoğan is trying to signal the world that, yeah, okay, I'm going to go back to normal, so kind of support me, type of thing. He's also trying to take these steps in foreign policy. Turkish foreign minister met with Egyptian foreign minister, so they're really active, they're working. And probably Erdoğan is going to be on the field himself, touring Turkey. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu is touring Turkey all the time, so it's going to depend a lot on that. And I mean, you know, Turkey, every week something unbelievable happens. So it's really, you could say, wow, it's just 2 months, you know, nothing much can change. Wow, this doesn't go for Turkey. A lot can change, basically. These are the latest polls, but, you know, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's very early to talk about it. But on the other hand, this is also unique. I mean, the first time we are heading towards presidential elections where the opposition candidate is really leading. This is also sort of changing the dynamics, even the strategy of the government as well. So we are going to see, yes, some interesting 2 months, and probably we'll have also some new Talk Turkey episodes. We are planning to do them a bit more often as the elections are coming. So we'll be discussing all new developments in the next weeks, probably.
Yes, good news for our viewers.
Till next time, then.
Till next time.